Man, I want to go out and fight.
These guys are awesome. I loved watching it with them.
Yeah, this is the best audience in the world. Do you know that? Cine Family.
There was a point when I leaned over to Gareth and I said, "These guys are kind of sick." I said this to the guy that made this.
I'm a nice person.
We breed them this way. Wow. Well, I think we should get right to the point because this is some of the best action scenes I've seen in a long time. And I think that's in some ways kind of a lost art. I think the reason why so many people are surprised that it's a white guy from Wales making it is that it really looks like an East Asian action movie. It's got the choreography. So many American movies. It's just like a lot of chaos, and you can't really tell what's going on, but you can really track, even though the editing's fast. Tell me a little bit about what you think makes a great action scene.
Blood. Really, a lot of my influences come from sort of 80s and 90s Hong Kong action cinema. So I grew up watching, all the sort of Jackie Chan films and Jet Li films. And so, my favorite ones are things like Police Story and Project A. Those are the ones that kind of stick with me, and those are the ones that I still rewatch now to this day. And then also, John Woo's work like Cut the Killer and Hard Boiled, and go back a little bit further, and you go back to Peckinpah's work on The Wild Bunch, stuff like that. And what I love about the action scenes in those films is that there's a certain degree of clarity. Like you can kind of see everything, and you get this full sort of spatial awareness when you're in the fight scene. So you know who's coming from where, all the attacks, all the punches, all the injuries and stuff like that. So it's kind of, it's going back to more of a sort of an old-fashioned approach. So I'm not, it comes down to the fact that I'm a really shit editor. So I can't do all the flashy stuff. I'm a very sort of basic editor. So everything's just, cut the cut. There's like a straight cut. And so that's kind of, helped me in a way to have this more old-fashioned style of shooting action.
To actually make something happen and then film it.
Yeah.
In that sense, it's a lot like, and this kind of leads to another comment, a lot of people have compared Kung Fu movies to musicals. Like, you get the head to toe, you actually see Fred Astaire dance. I mean, these are incredible performers. Can you tell us a little bit about Salat? Because I think that was a new martial art to me. Like, what makes that a particularly cinematic fight style?
All martial arts, they tend to share the same kind of techniques. It's the same. There's only so many ways you can throw a punch and a kick, and then only so many ways you can lock someone. But it's the packaging that's different. And one of the things that I love about Silat, obviously, is the way that the guys perform it, and it looks so fluid on screen as well. And it seems to be very sort of adaptable to different environments and different circumstances. So if they're in a wide open space with a bunch of fighters, they can deal with it. If they're in a tight, confined space, they can deal with it. And it's this idea of they tend to have a low center of gravity, so they can start fighting eye to eye, and then drop down and take your leg straight away. And it's that kind of adaptability that I really love, that we want to kind of explore more of in this film.
Was it more is it inherent to the martial art, or was it something you were going for, all the kind of the physicality, people being thrown into walls, people being thrown into objects?
I think that came from a desire to sort of make the fighting feel like it was more grounded in reality, more believable. So we do have these moments where there's complex choreography going on, but then we kind of mix it up with some rough takedowns, rough throws. The throws in the movie, they don't feel 100% clean. They feel like they're a little bit, trying to grab at certain parts of clothing, and not a perfect execution of a throw, but then that kind of makes it feel a little bit more real. So even though the fight scenes themselves, they go on for 5-6 minutes, and that's the exaggerated part, but we tend to kind of put movements in there that people can believe, that would really happen in the fight.
That leads to an obvious question. How did somebody not get hurt during all this?
People got hurt. We do our best, obviously, when we kind of design these films, because we know that some of the stunt work is going to appear to look very, very dangerous on camera. But we do our best to sort of execute them in a way where we don't put the actors or the stunt guys in real serious danger. But from time to time, shit happens. The guy who gets thrown over the balcony and snaps his back in half So for the way we did that, like when you watch that on the screen, you think, "Holy fuck! How did he really break his back?" No, I'm not that mean. A little bit, but the way we did it was we split it up into 3 separate shots. So the first shot is a nice big wide shot, and we kind of follow the path down. We took the wall out, put crash mats there. He's on a wire to control his path, and so he gets flipped over, and then boom, lands on the crash mats. We lock the camera into position, and then we put the wall back in. And when the wall's back in, we lift him up 1 meter off the wall, drop him down onto his arse, so his legs come down one side, his back comes down one side, onto his back, so his legs come down the other side. And then we stitch all 3 together, and then it's one seamless thing where it looks like shit. And but what happened and why that went horribly wrong, because that's what you want to hear, right? There's the bad part of it. So the poor guy.
We're all Jackie Chan fans. It always ends with the roll call of injuries.
So the part that went wrong with that was on the first take that we did of the flip over. The guys who were controlling the wire pulled a little bit too hard. So instead of him coming over and coming down nicely on an angle, his body just shot straight across, and he smashed the back of his head into the wall that was still up on the second floor. Because of the impact, they lost balance and the wire slipped, and then he starts falling down. But because of the bounce off the wall, he came down on a trajectory, so he moved away from all of the crash mats. Every single crash mat we put for him, he missed. And so he fell 5 meters down onto concrete. And I was like, he's fucking dead. There's no way he lived. So we all rush out, and then you might have noticed we had 1 or 2 paramedics in our crew, in our credits. We had a paramedic team and an ambulance crew on standby whenever we do these types of scenes. So they came rushing out, checked his neck, checked his vitals and everything. And after about 10 minutes of us panicking and not sure what the fuck was going to happen, he woke up. And he did the thing that all stunt guys do when they've had a stumble or like a bit of a fall. He's like, let's go again, They're sort of like, oh, I'm fucking tough, I can do this again. But, we were like, no, you're going to go to hospital first. And then 4 days later, we called him back in, and then he did it again.
Nice. Another thing that reminds me of Jackie Chan movies is that the hero is not is often overwhelmed. He's often fleeing. I mean, Jackie Chan it's almost the art of running away half the time, and there's a real sense of vulnerability to the leads that I really liked.
Yeah, for me, it's like we borrowed like 2 of the sort of the key martial artists is obviously like Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan. And the thing we borrowed from Jackie Chan is that idea of that vulnerability, that idea that there's a moment in that film, like when he's walking down the corridor after the fight with the machete gang, where if anyone comes out from another room, he's dead. He can't fight anymore. And so we wanted to kind of put that in there, kind of like to get the audience to kind of side with him a little bit more, to feel like there is a real sense of danger and a real vulnerability. Even though we all know he's the hero, he's going to make it till the end, but it's just that idea of like, what if? And it's just to plant that seed in their mind. And then the Bruce Lee thing is that I've always loved the fact that Bruce Lee would kind of just absolutely fucking lose it in a fight and get like, the rage would take over. And if you look at like Enter the Dragon, there's the moment when he kills O'Hara, when he jumps up and crushes his rib cage with a kick. And that look of anguish on his face is kind of like he acknowledges that he's crossed the line and that he let the rage take over. And that is something that we kind of riffed on a little bit when he jumps backwards through the empty doorframe and slams the guy's neck down onto the doorframe. There's that sort of like, oh shit, what did I just do moment,
Well, who else has that quality is Mad Dog. And I love both that he is, it's so rare that we're willing to have the villain essentially be tougher than the hero. It takes 2 heroes. Yeah. Which is kind of, I guess, an old kung fu tradition, and that he's tiny.
Yeah. But that thing with Mad Dog, the reason why we did that 2-on-1 fight is because of the Jackie Chan film Dragon Lord. Because I just love the fact that in that film they're totally upstaged by the bad guy. And they're just being beaten and thrown around and hurled around, and it just takes, just relentless pounding in order to get him to stop. But yeah.
He gets stabbed in the neck, and it just makes him madder.
Yeah. It's like, I gotta fucking kill these guys before I bleed to death. Yeah. That was it. It's like, that's the timer on him. So, and he's a small guy, so he hasn't got that much blood.
Well, I already referred to this as talked about how action movies can be like musicals, and I want to talk about what it's like to score a movie like this. I know you do a lot of songwriting, and how do you approach a movie like The Raid with these kind of set piece moments?
I play in a band, so we do. I think my comfort zone in the past decade or so has been more in songs, making songs for albums, and approaching something like this is obviously very different. Mainly because when you're writing a song, you're telling your own story. You're to some degree trying to grab people out of their everyday lives and yank them into the song so that they're driving along and they go, "Oh, what's that playing on the radio? Like, what is that?" This is the complete opposite thing. In fact, in the first few days of writing little sketches for the film, I found that all of the stuff that I did that was too overt, that was too type A, like it was either not going to work at all, or I had to mellow it out quite a bit because I didn't want to, Gareth is doing the storytelling here. I'm not. And clearly, one of the main things, as you kind of alluded to, is there's a dance going on here. There's like a rhythm, and there's it's almost like reverse engineering a music video, where there's already choreography and they're all dancing around, and you're like, okay, there's no sound. Now we got to make some. What is the song? What are they dancing to? And so
Milli Vanilli mostly.
And it's already got break beats.
Yeah, exactly.
Breaks.
A lot of it was just kind of trying to get in tune with the internal rhythm that Gareth had set up, not only with the extensive months of fight choreography, but with the editing that he was doing. It was very tight. So it was a matter of kind of watching the scenes enough that we could draw out that internal rhythm. And the other thing that we did early on is, because of kind of a lot of the traditional things that Gareth was drawing on, we felt one traditional thing we wanted to draw on was, kind of each character has a theme, but less of a theme in our score, more of a sound. So when you see the bad guy or feel his presence, you hear a certain drone or a certain texture. And the same when our lead character is thinking about his family, you're going to hear strings and a piano. So that was another element of that went into planning.
I mean, just like the idea of I come from an illustration background, painting background. So if you're going to do a painting, generally, one of the first things you do is choose a palette. You put certain paints on your palette and you don't use other colors. And like in the beginning, like the first day that Joe and I talked about this, we said we're not going to use guitar. We're not going to use certain types of it. Like, for example, we strayed away from anything, somebody else pointed out, anything that sounded overtly like Asian or Indonesian. It was like we didn't want to even touch anything that was going to make people going like, what's up with that? Especially like knowing that we have in Linkin Park as Indonesian fans, and I didn't want to like offend somebody by using an instrument in a weird way that I don't know anything about. So we really went with stuff that, as you could hear, like mashing up these break beats, mashing up these organic instruments, mashing up these synths, and then running everything through guitar pedals.
And there's also a real driving, because the movie has this kind of very, going up through the building. There's all these great moments of build or escalation that really lend itself.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it's obviously, there's moments when he just left room for the music to kind of step out front and be a character in one sense, like just. There are a few places where there isn't really a lot of sound design. It's pretty sparse, or it goes completely silent, and that's really a spot was nice for us to be able to say, okay, the music's going to take over here, and we'll get to just go to 11.
How did you plan that together? Did you have moments when kind of have it mapped out when you wanted music, when you wanted to pull back and hear just the sounds?
It was an interesting process for the work that we did, like on the US version, was that I just finished doing the original Indonesian version, and when I decided to talk to Mike, then we had a chat about it, and sort of I wanted to get a feel of what he wanted to do with the music, how we wanted to approach the score, and I didn't want to give them like a bunch of notes on, I think you should have your cue this point, I think you should kind of go for this tone here, because I just finished, and I didn't want to give them the same notes that I'd given my guys in Indonesia. And so it was one of those things that once we spoke, and then Mike talked about bringing Joe on board, and also was a huge fan of the work that he'd done on the Tron soundtrack, and then got a clear idea of his approach, saying that he wanted to come to it from like a more of a classical background and make a score that was not like a bunch of songs passed it onto a film, but an actual full score that was going to know when to go in the background and support and when to come into the front and push the film forward. So once I kind of had all that, it was kind of like a reassurance for me. And then I was just like, you guys go ahead and you do your thing. You have like full creative freedom to go off and do your thing. And then once it was ready for me to take a look at it, I could come in and give some notes and some feedback on it.
Do you remember any specific shifts that were made in that feedback process?
I mean, I have to say one thing that was really great for I'm sure any musician working in this capacity is always, it's a pleasure to work with such creative, freedom and not have somebody looking over your shoulder and checking in. In fact, I remember a day where towards the end of the process on this movie, I was back in the studio with Linkin Park and we were talking about our album, switching gears and everything. And I was telling the guys, like, I learned one thing that I learned from doing this score was that, being allowed to kind of just dive down the rabbit hole and go after creative ideas and let them snowball really I felt like it got us a lot further, a lot faster. We had some stuff that just, if you had stopped us halfway through and gone like, oh, okay, so like, what are you guys doing here? You know what I mean? We would have snapped out of the spell and not arrived at what we arrived at. So that was something that we actually implemented in our studio for the next record. As we're writing right now. We're gonna hopefully have something out. We are gonna have something out this year. So that was Gareth. I'm sure he's going to be taking a lot of credit for the next Linkin Park record when it comes out. I helped those guys.
You're welcome.
I helped those guys out with that.
One interesting thing to talk about there is with great power comes great responsibility. That if a director tells you, okay, go for it. When we came to the table, we had a bunch of ideas like okay, no guitars, distorted drums, stuff like that. And when Gareth said, okay, go for it, it's kind of like, oh, okay, all right, we need to really this is our baby now. We got to take care of this. We got to make sure it's great because the next time we give it to Gareth, it's going to be almost done. Let's make sure he loves this. So it's almost like, because he gave us that freedom, I think we came out with something better than if we did have someone nursing us, kind of the whole way through.
You mentioned the Indonesian version. How was the Indonesian version different than the U.S. version?
It's what was interesting to me, because I get to kind of see both versions, is that some of the cues were very similar, and sometimes songs kind of ended in a sort of similar way. But it was like the overall feel and atmosphere and the tone was almost the same, but just the actual tracks themselves are very different. That sounds bizarre, right? It's a weird way to say it.
No.
But it's kind of like the guys that did the sound mix for the film, they also did the score. So it was kind of hard in a way at the first point to kind of separate what they'd done from it. And I'd worked really, really closely with them on it. We were like 20 hours a day in Thailand doing the post-production work on it for like about 10, 14 days just to get it in on time, ready for Toronto. So it's kind of hard sometimes to separate the two. And for me, it sounds like horribly diplomatic to say, but truthfully, I love both soundtracks equally. There are certain things that I really prefer the work that Mike and Joe have done, and then there's other tracks where I prefer the guys that Indonesia have done. And it's like it's that fine balance between the two then. So yeah, it's interesting.
Living in Indonesia for the last 4 years, the film is very universal. It's very easy for anyone to understand, but I do wonder how much your observations as an outsider of the culture have affected the story or the portrayal.
On this one, not so much. On the first movie, Merantau, that was way more influenced by observations and like an experience of living in the country then. But on this one, like you said earlier, it's way more universal, and the whole idea of that building, thank God, is fictitious. But yeah, it was just it came less from living a life in Indonesia and more from living a life watching a bunch of movies, basically.
Yeah, that building is incredible. It is a character in the movie. And I was wondering how much it was mythological just purely from you and how much was locally observed. Oh.
The building itself is CG as well. Seriously. The real building that we shot the exterior for is like a 4-story building, very nice, clean office space and stuff. And so I figured we need to do something
You're
to that.
messing with me.
I swear to God. So my online guy would kind of use that as a template then and just make it look horrible and tall.
Wow. Well, I was gonna. The interiors, I assume, were sets though, because that's incredibly well designed.
Yeah, all the corridors, the
It looks like
atrium,
those walls have had many holes punched in them over time,
or many faces thrown into them as well.
Yeah. Can you tell me a little bit about the conception of that building?
Yeah. So, like, one of the things that we felt that we needed to do was have, like, we knew that the film was going to be all contained within one building, and once you do that, you need to try to find different ways that we can kind of make it, like, still feel fresh and aesthetically different throughout the film. Because it can get very boring if it's just, because all we had to work with was corridors and atriums and rooms. That was it. So we decided to kind of try to have like a key moment in the film that was set within that location. So for the hallway, it was always the knife and the stick fight. And then for the machete gang, there was like, using the door and going into the room. So it was always the neck breaker. That was the kind of the big thing with that. And then for the atrium, it was the idea of playing around with light and the idea of that we could shut down all the lights and then play around with that idea of, when you look in the dark, you start to see more detail. And so like with the AK-47 guys and the shotgun blast, it was all playing around with time and light. And then obviously the big backbreaker fall. So it was just
there's also the incredible, because it's like projects, it's cellular. You have that amazing kind of vertical where it's going through room to room.
Yeah, and the thing is,
I wanted that to go on forever.
The thing is with the design of the building as well, because we have like T-section corridors, L-section corridors, straight corridors, atriums, stairwells, torture rooms, meth labs. If you put all of that together and really make a schematic, like a blueprint of it, it just looks like the worst design of a building ever made. It would never be a square block. It would just be some fucking random shape or something.
Well, tell us a little bit about the performers. They're both the lead and the main villain are fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, Iko and Yayan, they've worked with us since the first movie, since Maranta. Before I started working with Iko, he was a delivery guy for a phone company. And he used to deliver documents between like different offices and stuff like that. And so I met him doing a documentary and noticed immediately that he had a sort of screen presence about him. And so we decided to sort of take him away from that work and bring him into this and gear up these films to kind of launch him as an action star. With Yayan, he was one of the choreography team for the first movie. And he wasn't actually supposed to be in the first movie for a long time, but he'd practiced with Iko for the choreography and the lift fight of Maranta. And we were still looking to cast that role. And my line producer, Anne, she suggested that we give him a try, give him an audition to see how he handled the drama. And luckily, Yayan was very, very natural and very adept at doing the drama as well. So that's kind of like, once we'd worked together on Maranta, I knew I wanted them to come back again and do something in the raid and fight each other again, but have a much longer fight than we did in Maranta. A lot of the other fighters then from the film, we kind of scoured through Indonesia to kind of do a big casting session where we saw about 300 to 400 people, and we whittled it down to like 80 that were really good. But going back to the whole architecture and the design of the building, the guy with the machete with the big eyes, his day job is as an architect. So he does martial arts in his spare time, and he just came and shot the film for us and then went off and built a building somewhere then.
I mean, when you say he had star quality, I'm sorry, can you pronounce the name of the lead again?
Iko.
Iko. How would you know that he could carry a whole movie just from like telephone delivery guy? He's very, very charismatic and likable, but he really acts.
Yeah, I think.
Did you have to work closely with him to get a performance, or?
Yeah, on the first movie, we sent him for we did like a 3-month drama class before the film started, and for the first film, he relied more on sort of like visuals than he did from like trying to get into the psychology of the character. So for the first film. It was almost a lot of sort of like show and tell. I'd have to kind of do the performance for him, and then he'd watch me do it, and then he'd do his interpretation of that. So he'd treat it the same way that he would with choreography. So he had a very sort of like photographic memory for it. So that was his approach then to the performance in the first film. But on this one, having that whole experience behind him, then he got to kind of, it helped me a lot because I kind of got to get more into the psychology of it with him. And so hopefully in the next film, I'm going to push him even further then.
What is it like working with Indonesian crews? What is it like? What is the film industry like there? And
crew-wise, like they're brilliant, they're amazing. we work ridiculously long hours out there. There's no unions. Like our shortest day was about 16 to 17 hours, and our longest day was about 26, which is technically one really long day and one very, very short 2-hour day. But yeah, so that's kind of like we wanted to do 5 days, 6 days, 5 days, 6 days per week. It ended up being 5 days, 6 days, 6 days, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6 until we finished. And it's literally like it's very. It is fun, but it's kind of stressful when you're doing it. It's one of those things where during the shoot, all you think about is I want to be in post-production. When you're in post-production, you're like, all I want to do is release the film. And then when you release the film, you're like, oh, I want to shoot again. It's kind of like this weird sort of masochistic thing about it. But yeah, the crew that I have, they've been great, and they adapted really well on the first film, because on the first film I didn't speak any Indonesian at all. And they've worked a lot with sort of on television commercials, so they've worked with foreign directors before, so at least they kind of helped me with that language barrier. But on this one, in the last 2 years, they've taught me a lot of Indonesian, a lot of things that I can use to insult people's mothers, but also the ability to be able to communicate with the crew and to kind of give direction as well. So we're getting in that position now where we're both, I'm almost not fluent, but getting close to it now.
Are you going to keep making movies in Indonesia?
Yeah, absolutely. I want to do stuff outside of Indonesia as well at some point, but for now, like the immediate future is to do a sequel to this one. There you go. Yeah, so we're going to start shooting that in January. And that's something I really want to do in Indonesia. And the idea is I'd love to be able to do like a project in Indonesia and then do a project outside of Indonesia and then go back and forth, back and forth. I still got about 5 ideas I want to do with Eco for Silat again.
Other than the lack of unions, what do you like about it that makes you want to go back?
Like, to be honest, it's like when I was in UK, I didn't really do enough to get myself noticed in the film industry. I kind of didn't push enough and I kept myself too localized. And since I moved to Indonesia, it's given me my career, and the people there have supported me. They haven't kind of seen me as some white devil outsider guy that's fucking with their culture and stuff. They've actually embraced the films that we've made, and they've been like proud of the success that this film has had, and so yeah, it's been like a big support. And that's one of the reasons why I still want to make films there, is because I just feel like I owe it to them.
Well, let's if you could turn the lights up for a little bit, I want to give the audience some chance to ask a couple questions as well. Somebody right here.
So basically, when it comes to the martial arts side of the choreography, it's very much a collaborative process between myself, Iko, and Yayan. Yayan's a guy who played Mad Dog. And the three of us are kind of, for 3 months, we spend time in an office space with lots of crash mats everywhere and a handy cam. And I'll usually give them a sense of the location, the props, the opponents, what their skill set is, what's the tone of the fight, and then tell them, okay, now fight your way out of that situation. So then they'll come to me then with a bunch of movements, because they'll design like the idea of this elbow, this kick, this punch, this lock, this exchange. And then I'll take a look at all of that and work with them then to figure out the order of things. So like what the flow of the fight should be, where those key cool moments should come in. And so we workshop it together then, the three of us, and we do like a full video storyboard. We kind of shoot it exactly as we would in the film, but just with the handy cam. So we know every edit, every shot, and we know if it flows, if it works, what doesn't, why. And then we can use that as a template then for later on in the final version of the film. So then when we're on location, we've got that laptop open with the video storyboard. And we can sort of take a look at that, and every department knows what's required from every shot. And then as we get the final version, we drop that into the timeline and replace the shitty like office version. And slowly you start to see that scene build up again. And hopefully it looks better than it did in the office. But then if there are any sort of edits that kind of jar, that don't kind of come together properly, we're still on location. So we can just go back in and shoot another shot and then fix it. So it's kind of born out of necessity and the idea of like wanting to keep the budget down on in terms of the action scenes. So that helps in a big way in that respect then. But when it comes to the gunplay or the stunts, that's usually my twisted, sick little mind then, for the guy being shot in the face and the door with the neck and stuff. And that because Iko and Yayan, they're too nice, they're too humble. So they just want to punch people and run away and stuff. I'm like, no, pull the leg, pull the knife down, and all that stuff. So yeah, we tend to workshop and push it together. That's it.
There's an interesting balance of gunplay and physical activity. Is that something? I mean, it isn't just a martial arts movie or just a gunfight movie.
I think like for the gunplay stuff as well, it was one of those things, because it is a SWAT team, we decided not to have any martial arts in the film until they'd ran out of bullets, until they'd actually lost their guns. We didn't want it to be, it's a martial arts film, so it doesn't matter if they got a gun in their holster, they'll still use their fists. It didn't make sense. I needed it to be like a logical progression from gunplay to weapon stuff, and then when they haven't got any weapons, then it's hand to hand. So yeah, so that was the sort of the logical points of that. And then the idea of not making it purely just a martial arts film, it's like, I know that the action discipline is silat, so then that kind of tells people it's a martial arts film, but one thing I noticed early on was that the concept was survival horror. Like the whole concept of it is typical to survival horror, so I decided to kind of like put more genres into it that you wouldn't normally get in a martial arts film. So horror elements like the machete tapping against the tiles and the guys hiding inside the wall. It was just the idea of throwing suspense, throwing thriller elements into it as well.
How do you feel about an American remake, guys?
It's happening. I'm exec producing on it. I'm exec producing the horrible remake. I'm actually like it. For me, I think it's got a lot of potential and it could do very well. It's the storyline is very streamlined and it's very universal, so it could take place anywhere. And I think the key to its success will be as long as whoever ends up being given the directing job, because I don't want to direct it because I've just done this one, and I've ran out of ways that I can kill people with doors. So I think someone needs to come to it with a fresh pair of eyes, and be given the freedom that I had when I did this. So I had nobody sort of looking over my shoulder telling me, oh, you can't kill people like that, you can't do this or you can't do that. The only limitation I had was budgetary, and it was just, can't afford to do it. That was it. So I think that as long as the director of that remake is given that kind of freedom and that kind of flexibility, then it can only lead to a good thing. They've also, the guys have shown like a certain degree of respect for the original as well. So Iko and Yayan will be involved in designing some of the choreography for the film as well. So there'll be like a silat flavor to it as well. I got a long list of people that I'd like to see in it, but I don't want to say any of those names because it's not nice to kind of either jinx or let slip about stuff. But those decisions haven't been made yet. But there's people that I really hope can be part of that project then. My wife, she's Indonesian Japanese. I was based in UK for a long time. And she got me the gig doing the documentary out there. And while we went up to do the documentary, that was like the first time I'd learned about silat. It was the first time I'd ever seen it before. And so I kind of got blown away with the idea of, this was a martial art discipline that I was not familiar with and looked great, and I felt it had potential to do well on film. And so knowing that she had family there in Indonesia and that I had no real ties that kept me in UK beyond, family and friends, I had some ties to keep me in UK. Family and friends that I love very much and miss every single day. It was like a no-brainer. It was this thing of like, let's go for it and try and make a fresh start and see what happens. And so that's how I ended up over there. We shot for about 72 days total. During which time I barely saw anyone. The final fight was about 6 minutes worth of fighting and about 2 minutes worth of drama wraparound. And I wanted about 14 to 15 days to shoot it, but I got given 8. So the poor guys who were fighting then had to fight for like 14 hours a day, and 6 of those days were consecutive days as well. And the best analogy I can give you is like, you know when you go to the gym and you do 1 hour in the gym and the next day you feel like shit and you feel like your body can't do anything ever again. Imagine doing 14 hours in the gym and then the next morning you wake up and you do another 14 hours and then for another 4 days on top of that. And then you get 1 day break and then you do another 2 days. That's what we put them through. But I was okay, I was fine. It's all fine. I only cut dialogue from this, actually. There's one scene where every time I watch it, I feel like it's out of place, and I feel like it's a little too not so much that the scene is too violent, but it feels like we've already had so much violence at that point that I feel we need to have a little bit of breathing space. So there is one scene that I probably would have cut out at a push.
Are you gonna say what scene?
Yeah, okay. The elevator scene with the stab through the neck. It's like I like the scene on its own, but in the flow of it, after the whole butter knife in the belly button bit, it just feels, for me, it felt like it was the wrong time to have that scene. And the information that we take from it, we get anyway later on when we see the 2 dead bodies in the room. So that was always like a little bone of contention. That was something that we argued over constantly throughout, all the way until the final picture lock on it.
So even in a movie like this, you feel it's possible to have extraneous violence.
Yeah, I think. Well, here's the thing: is like for this, like when we came to the violence of it, we know that the film is violent, undoubtedly. Yeah, but one thing I feel is that the way we portray the violence isn't in a way which is kind of like exploitative. So we'll hit you hard in the stomach and make you have like a reaction to it, but then we cut away to something else. There's only really 2 moments in the film where we linger on something. The guy being stabbed 5 times in the chest. He got injured in that, I'll tell you about that in a second. And then obviously Mad Dog having his neck ripped. But the Mad Dog death had to be like that, because it was the big
dramatic
climax.
impact. You're either establishing someone as a villain or it's relating to the drama of their escape. And it is true that scene, it doesn't necessarily add anything to the character to know that.
Yeah, exactly. So that was like a question mark, and that stayed a question mark. And then when I finally watched it with people, it's one of those ones where you're like, I wish I could kind of pull that out now. But it's okay. It's fine.
I think we're all having a pretty good time. You were going to tell a story about someone getting hurt.
Yeah.
We love stories about people getting hurt here.
So that guy, poor bastard. What happened to him was when we do like the stabbing, we use like old theater tricks. So we had like retractable blades that went into the handle and stuff like that. And for him, he had like a pad on his chest, so that when the thing is being stabbed into his chest, he doesn't get hurt too badly. And the thing is, when you stab down with one of those knives, there's still wood there. There's still a hard thing there. So the padding was necessary. But as he got pulled down onto the floor, the padding shifted down. And the actor was so lost in his moment, he had no idea. And he just went fucking nuts. And he just boom, 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 stabbed him with it. And if you look closely when you watch the shot, the guy holds his performance, and he holds on. But you can see the vein in his neck goes really tight. And he goes red immediately. And basically, he just took a beating in the rib cage, and we'd finished the shot, and then the guy who did the stabbing got up and was sort of, he was in this whole thing of like, trying to like control his feelings, and everyone's catering to him. Everyone's like, are you okay? Are you okay? And then I look in the monitor, and then I look across, and I see this poor stunt guy still lying on the floor, clutching to his chest. And I was like, did it go in him? Like, we couldn't tell what happened, And we ran up, and then we lifted up his t-shirt, and he's just got all these like immediate bruise marks and sort of little pointers all over the sort of top of his chest then. So like we do usually with those type of things, we give him a cup of tea, give him a sit down, and then later on then we were done, and we just told him, like, you don't have to do that ever again. Just lie down, we put some blood on you for continuity.
We'll make the bad man go away.
Yeah.
Is it hard to watch in the dailies later? Or are you like, yes, vein. Look at that vein.
The shot really worked so well, though. But no, I joke around about it a lot, but like absolutely, when we are shooting, though, safety is the most like paramount thing and stuff like that. Like we can joke around afterwards because no one died, but yeah, it shakes you up a lot. it shakes you up because you realize, like when you're doing this stuff, that all of the sort of danger you're putting these people into, it's for like 2 seconds worth of a reaction on screen. And it's like, and that's why when we do that, then I have such a huge amount of respect for all of the fighters and all the stunt guys, because they're putting themselves at risk, their health at risk, in order to entertain all of us when we watch it. And you might have noticed in the credits we have, like, you know, drugs lab number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to 20, and you know, the carrying ball guys 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 all the way up to 18. And the reason why is because, like, usually in films, these guys, they get relegated to stunts and then just a list of names. And I wanted to give them a credit above some of the other people that did just normal performance, but only in 1 or 2 scenes. So I was like, okay, it's my main guys and then all of the stunt team, and they get a credit, and yeah, good respect to them then.
Yeah. Well, it was an amazing team effort. Well,